Welcome back to the Crash Course Podcast. My name is Craig Crash Collins, joined as always by Brandon Scott. You know him as B. Scott. Well, March Madness continues this weekend in Indy, but this time it is the high school kids that are taking center stage. It is finally time for the IHSAA Boys Basketball State Finals. There was a 2-week hiatus because of the NCAA tournament, but it's finally time to crown some champions, and today we're going to be getting into it, breaking down all 4 state championships, telling you our players to watch, keys to the game, and of course predicting who will be cutting down the nets at Gainbridge this Saturday. We hope that you guys are excited, just as excited as we are. More excited that our boys at the NCAA. Thank you for calling in a favor, B. Scott, to get them to put some games in Indianapolis to give us a little bit of a break. To be able to still break down these high school games, because there's some good games on the docket this Saturday.
Yeah, there sure are. It's that time of year. We're all basketball crazy, and I love state championships. It's such a special moment for these student athletes. So, hey, looking at my picks, I still have 2 alive. 50%. That's not bad.
We each still have 2 teams that are still alive. Talking about brackets, our brackets for some of these classes got busted a little bit. Some of them, we still have a shot, but only one of us has a potential to walk away with 2 of the 4 teams that we picked on the sectional show to actually win it all. Because you and I had Brownstown, you had Brownstown, I had Wapahani. They're playing for the 2A state championship, so we both had Fishers as well. So only one of us has a chance to win 2 games. So, B. Scott, I don't think we're friends this week because one of us has to come out on top.
Well, at least during the 2A game.
Right. Well, yeah. For the 2A game,
every other,
right.
It's fine. Every other one.
Right. Yeah. Sorry.
4A, we can come together.
Yeah. For 2 hours, we have to be mortal enemies. That's fine.
Yes.
We'll figure it out.
How about this? I will sleep during that 2 hours, so it won't even matter.
Hey, I just like how I was gonna say. I like how we're both just like in that vibe of like, you know what? We'll just both take a nap. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, well,
everything's made better with a nap,
especially because as we get into this, the action does tip off at 10:30, so it's an early-ish morning as far as sports are concerned. To get things going on Saturday, that's when all the action tips off. 10:30 a.m. With the 1A state final. You've got Bethesda Christian versus Fort Wayne Canterbury with the 2A final right after that. Brownstown Central versus Wapahani. Then you move on to the night session where you've got the 3A final, which is at 6 p.m. That's Scottsburg taking on South Bend St. Joseph. And then the nightcap, the final game of the IHSAA boys basketball season, that is Ben Davis and Fishers, who will be battling it out for the 4A final. And you mentioned our picks, B. Scott. Just to kind of give a refresher, like we said, you and I both had Fishers. They both obviously have a chance. They were going to be playing Ben Davis for the 4A title. You had Brownstown Central. I had Wapahani in the to win our 2A brackets. They both play each other, for the state championship. As far as our 1A and 3A, you and I both had to fall on our swords for Brebeuf. They lost to Garin Catholic in 2 overtimes in the sectional championship. That was both of our 3A state championships. And then I had Orleans, who lost to Bar Reeve in 5 overtimes in the sectional. So both of my teams that did not make it, of the teams that I picked, both lost in multiple overtimes, which is pretty crazy. And then for you, B. Scott, Bar Reeve was so close to making it to the state championship. They lose in the semi-state nightcap to Bethesda Christian 63-38. So those are how our picks fared from when we did our sectional preview show about a month or so ago. And looking at this state finals weekend by the numbers, you've only got one game featuring a number 1 versus a number 2. That's 2A. You've got 2 teams ranked number 1 in their class, 1 team ranked 2nd, 1 team ranked 4th, 2 teams ranked 8th, 1 team ranked 13th, and 1 unranked team. That's Fort Wayne Canterbury, who's rallied all the way to the state finals. And one thing that I think is very interesting, I had to double check it a couple times, make a couple of double takes. There's 7 of the 8 participants this weekend are seeking their first ever state championship. So the only team that is not is Ben Davis, who is the defending 4A state champion. They're seeking their 5th championship, but Bethesda Christian, Fort Wayne Canterbury, Brownstown Central, Wapahani, Scottsburg, South Bend St. Joseph, and Fishers all have never won a state championship in boys basketball. So we've got a chance to see 4 new state champions, which is pretty wild.
That's fun. I love that.
Yeah. So, hey, why don't we go ahead and get things rolling here with our 1A preview. Like I said, 10:30 a.m. tip for the 1A state final. That pits number 8 Bethesda Christian going up against, they're 23-7, going up against Fort Wayne Canterbury. They are 18-9. The Patriots rode to Gainbridge. That started in sectional 58. They defeated Traders Point Christian 69-26 in the sectional opener. They beat Purdue Poly North 58-22 in the sectional semifinals, and then won 58-47 over Indianapolis Metropolitan in the sectional championship. Then in the regionals, they won 68-50 over number 5 Clay City. And then in semi-state, they defeated number 13 Greenwood Christian 53-35. And then they beat number 1 Bar Reeve 63-38 to advance to Gainbridge. The Cavaliers rode to Gainbridge. It started in sectional 53. They defeated Southwood 67-53 in the sectional semis. They defeated Northfield 52-34 in the sectional championship. Then they won 57-38 over North Vermilion in regional play. In the semi-state, they defeated Elkhart Christian, the number 15 team in 1A, 60-51 in overtime to advance to the night session, and then won 56-53 over number 11 Liberty Christian to advance to the state finals. So when I'm looking for a player to watch in the 1A state final, I'm looking at Fort Wayne Canterbury guard Devin Lewis. He's a senior. He leads the team in scoring, averaging 15 points per game. He also leads the team in threes. He's in threes attempted, and he hits 36% of them. He hits 36% of his shots from beyond the arc. He's second on the team in three-point percentage with a minimum of 50 shots. There's a couple other players that were ahead of him in three-point percentage, but hadn't taken nearly as many threes. I'm always like a little hesitant to use those stats because I'm like, well, there's other players that are in front of them that have shot a good number of threes, just not as many threes or close to as many threes as he had. So, he's a good three-point shooter. In tournament play, he averages 14 points per game. In semi-state weekend, he had 24 points versus Elkhart Central. Also added 5 assists and 4 steals. He also had 14 points versus Liberty Christian, 4 rebounds and 3 steals. So Bethesda has the 11th best defense in 1A, 36th in the state, allowing 45 points per game. So if the Cavs want to break through, they need Devin Lewis to have a big game. There are also 3 Cavaliers players who average double figures. So Fort Wayne Canterbury has the scores to keep up with Bethesda, but they're going to need Devin Lewis to lead the charge.
So my player to watch is actually from Canterbury as well. I am looking at senior forward Tucker Day. Look, he's averaging, he's not the team's leading scorer. Actually, he's the team's second leading scorer. But for me, what it's big is that he will be the tallest individual. Well, he's going to be tied for tallest individual with Bethesda Christian's Cooper Jackson. But it's going to be a battle on the inside, and these teams shoot so evenly, and their free throw percentages are so even. There's not a whole lot of differential there, but I feel like Tucker Day, who just kind of I feel like he's going to have a little bit of an advantage here, and really just needs to control the glass, whether that be lay on the offensive end, putbacks, or offensive rebounds. Really, when you look at it, Canterbury is a really good rebounding team overall, top to bottom. I mean, you have, let me count, 1, 2, three. I mean, you have at least three players averaging over 4 rebounds per game. And with most of their height being about 6'1" to 6'2", Tucker Day, he needs to control the glass if Canterbury wants to have any bit of an edge, just because of how closely tied these two teams are in the statistical categories.
Yeah, I mean, it is going to be a closer game, than I think a lot of people would think, because you look at these two records and you think, 18-9 versus, versus what's
23 and 7.
23-7, yeah. And you think like, okay, those records are somewhat similar, but then you realize and you remember that, hey, to be in the state championship game at 18-9, that means you had to and they won 5 games. So that means they were 13-9 going into sectional play. So they're really hot right now, but they are very similar.
Currently, they are on they're on an 8-game winning streak, whereas Bethesda Christian is currently on an 18-game winning streak. So, I mean, I guess the hot hand you would say goes to Bethesda Christian right now, but it's honestly, it's a toss up. Yeah, I'll get to more of that here in a second.
All right. So, when I look at, a key to the game here, Canterbury. For Canterbury, my key to the game is that they need to force Bethesda inside and control the perimeter. On the way to Gainbridge, Bethesda knocked off number 5, knocked off the number 5 and number 1 team in 1A. Against number 5, Clay City, the Patriots shot 42% from 3-point range, hitting 8 of 19 shots. Bethesda won 68-50 against number 1 Bar Reeve. The Pats hit 9 of 14 threes, shooting 64% from beyond the arc. Bethesda won 63-38. Statistically, Fort Wayne Canterbury is better than Bethesda in rebounds per game and blocks per game. As you were saying, they are a good rebounding team. So if the Cavs can force Bethesda Christian to beat them in the paint rather than from beyond the 3-point line, they have a puncher's chance of completing the Cinderella story. So if they can just control the perimeter, force Bethesda to try to beat them inside where they do have the advantage, then I think they have a good chance to possibly pull off the win. But when I look at my prediction, though, for this game, it's just so hard to ignore what Bethesda Christian does. You know me, B. Scott, when we do these, I'm a big resume guy, and it's just hard to ignore what the Patriots have done this postseason. They've outscored their opponents 369-218 in the tournament. For those keeping track, that's a 25-point margin of victory. Their margin of victory for the season is just 12 points per game. They beat number 5, Clay City, by 18. They beat number 1, Bar Reeve, by 25. Bethesda had 63 points against the third-ranked defense in terms of points per game. Bar Reeve going into that game, had allowed 37 points per game. So to be able to put up that many points is pretty astounding. And so when you've been shooting like the Patriots have this postseason, and you're 11th defensively in your class, top 50 in the state, I just can't pick against you. And that's what Bethesda has. They have a strong defense. They have a great offense that's clicking right now. So I'm going Bethesda Christian to win the 1A title.
Yeah, for me, my key to the game, it kind of spins off of my player to watch. Mostly it just comes down to, because of how statistically these two teams are evenly matched, it all comes down to who can control the glass, who can get those second chance points. That is the biggest key, I believe. But what my pick is going to be, looking at both of these teams that are so evenly, like I said, they're so evenly matched on paper, that I have to go with the fact that I never, in these types of situations, the longer win streak actually kind of scares me a little bit more. And that is because you have been playing so well for so long that eventually it always seems to feel like, I guess this is the Purdue fan in me, the other shoe is going to drop at some point. And right now, with Bethesda running on an 18-game win streak compared to Canterbury running on an 8-game win streak, it just feels like Canterbury is kind of clicking right now and is that potential Cinderella to put an end to an 18-game win streak. So because of that, I'm actually going with Canterbury for my 1A pick.
And I mean, look, I'm glad that you picked him too, because I think, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what these 2 weeks off does to these teams, whether or not you're going to see like, okay, it's 2 weeks off, so any kind of like magic or like hot streak you had going on, like now we're gonna, that's kind of fizzled and faded. We're gonna see more of just like, the strengths of these teams. That's how they're gonna match up, or are we going to see more of a chance of an upset because it's been 2 weeks. Everybody's kind of, back to being kind of, obviously they've still been in the weight room, still been going through practices, all that stuff. But like,
it's also been spring. It's been spring. Most likely it's been spring break for at least one of these schools, if not both.
Right.
So now we're in the heart of spring break season.
Right. So, how much, is it going to be more of a chance for chaos because it's a 2 week hiatus, a 2 week break? Or is it going to be more, okay, well, it's going to be more likely to be kind of chalk because, any kind of magic you had going is going to wear off. So it's going to be interesting to see. Like I said, I'm glad that you picked them because I kind of wanted to, but like I said, it's just too hard to ignore Bethesda's resume. So that's why I went with them. But so I have Bethesda. You have Fort Wayne Canterbury. We'll see which of those teams comes out on top this Saturday. Following that 1A state final is going to be the 2A state final, 12:45 p.m. tip. That's an approximate tip based on how the first game goes. That will show you number 1, Brownstown Central, the Braves. They're 27-4 versus number 2, the Wapahani Raiders. They are 26-2. The Braves rode to Gainbridge. In sectional 46, they defeated Henryville 83-41 in the sectional opener. They beat Southwest Hanover 73-49 in the sectional semis. They won 53-37 over number 4, Providence, to advance out of sectional play. They defeated number 15, Sullivan, 67-41. In the regionals, in the semi-state, they won 50-49 over number 8, Park Tudor in the first game. And then they defeated number 16, Park Heritage, 66-56 in the nightcap. The Raiders rode to Gainbridge. In sectional 40, they beat number 9, Lapel, 47-31 in the sectional opener. They defeated Westdale 67-46 to advance to the sectional championship, and then beat Monroe Central 59-26 to win sectional 40. They then defeated number 3, Tipton, 65-41 in the regionals, and then in semi-state, they defeated North Judson 48-28 in their first game, and then defeated number 6, Fort Wayne Blackhawks 60-49 in overtime to advance to the 2A final. So when I think of a player to watch for the 2A final, I'm thinking about Wapahani senior Isaac Andrews. He averages 25 points per game. He's 10th in the state in that category. The leading scorer, still alive in tournament play. This is based on stacks on maxpreps because Brownstown Central doesn't put their stats on maxpreps. So I don't know exactly where Jack Binter would lie. I'm sure he would be up there around where Isaac Andrews is, if not maybe ahead of him. That's why I wanted to say, like, hey, this is just based off maxprep stats. So sound off in the comments, if I'm a little bit off in that assumption or that category. But Andrews has 7 games of 30 points or more, 2 games of 40-plus points. He's averaged 21 points per game this tournament. The last time we saw him, he was dropping 29 points on Fort Wayne Blackhawk to advance to the state final. I mean, we talked about it in our sectional preview. I mean, Fort Wayne Blackhawk statistically year in and year out is one of those teams that we're like, hey, should we go ahead and just kind of pencil them in? If you don't know who to pick in 2A, just pencil Fort Wayne Blackhawk in because it feels like they win every single year. Andrews is 4th in the state in three-pointers made. He's hit 101 threes this season. He's 45% from beyond the arc. He's hit 4+ threes in 3 of 6 postseason games this season. He was 9 of 15 on semi-state weekend, hitting 60% of his shots from beyond the arc. He's an elite scorer that can go toe-to-toe with Jack Binter, and he'll obviously be crucial to Wapahani's success.
Yeah, so my player to watch, as it was when we did the sectional preview, is Jack Binter. Look, this kid is shooting lights out right now. He's averaging over 25 and a half points per game. But he's not only that, he's also leading his team in rebounds. I mean, he's athletic. I mean, we're talking about the kid that earlier this season broke a backboard on a dunk. He shattered the glass. So, I mean, how can you not want to watch a player like that? I mean, pretty much for Brownstown, which is kind of unfortunate, is they will go as far as Jack Benter goes, which I will kind of get into a little bit more in a little bit. But he is my player to watch. Like I've said before, I mean, look, he is shooting over 40% from 3-point range. Free throws, if you think you're just will force him to the free throw line, guess what? He's shooting 83% there and 55% from the field. So it's just like with this guy, pick your poison. Oh, and not only is he scoring, rebounding, wherever you put him, he's also doling out the most assists on the team as well. So he's also that guy setting his teammates up to score. That is a really, really hard type of player to stop, especially at the high school level.
Yeah, I mean, those are going to be the two players to watch. I think it's going to be really fun to watch that play out, because I mean, I can't remember the last time. I mean, I'm sure it's probably been recently too, and I'm just not as into the weeds as some other people who might sound off in the comments, but where we've had two players like this squaring off against each other, like in the state finals, like two elite scorers like this in the state finals. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Those two square off because they're both really fantastic scorers. They're both really great. And it'll be interesting to see what they're able to do. And that kind of leads into the key to the game, which is defense. Who can play it best? Because on the season, Brownstown Central allows an average of 47 points per game. In their 4 losses, they allowed an average of 69 points per game. They are now 3 of those 4 losses did come to 4A schools. So I kind of was like, well, whenever you're a 2A school losing to 4A school, we'll kind of give you the pass there. But let's look at the one loss that was to a non-4A school, which was in December. Brownstown Central lost to 1A Evansville Christian 58-57. In that loss, they allowed EC to knock down 10 threes and erase a 14-point third quarter deficit. Brownstown Central led 40-26 with 6:17 to play in the third quarter. Wapahani has the best defense in 2A. They rank 7th in the state, allowing 40 points per game. They've only allowed 55 points 3 times all season. Their 2 losses coming to Delta and Yorktown, both 3A opponents. And then they also allowed 73 points in an 81-73 3-overtime win over Cowan. Shout out. So they're really locked down on defense. They've allowed an average of 37 points per game this postseason. Both of these teams have top 10 in 2A, top 50 in the state offenses. Brownstown is first in 2A, 8th in the state, averaging 69 points per game. Wapahani is 10th in 2A, 30th in the state, averaging 64 points per game. So whoever can lock down defensively and get some key stops and turnovers, that's the team that's going to come out on top. But ultimately, this should surprise no one, as I'm sure your pick for the game should surprise no one. I'm going with Wapahani. They were my pick before the tournament. I have to stick with it, and I feel confident doing so. It's not just I have to stick with it because they're one of my only teams I have left. Like, no, I feel confident. Wapahani has an answer to Jack Benter and Isaac Andrews. They have an offense that can compete with with Brownstown, and their defense is far superior. So they've got the defense that can slow down the Brownstown Central offense. They've got a scorer that can go toe-to-toe with Jack Benter. It's going to be a really fun game. I've got Wapahani winning it.
So my key to the game, as always, I'm not going to be giving one key for one team. I'm kind of going overall here. Look, we all know that Jack Benter and Isaac Andrews are going to get theirs. But what the team that can ultimately win this game is the team that has the role players around them that can contribute as well. With the role players that step up and start making shots and defensive stops, that is the team that will ultimately bring home the 2A state championship, which is why I do believe the role players for Brownstown Central are going to get the job done, and Brownstown Central is your 2A state champion.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, that shouldn't surprise anyone there, but it's going to be. I think that both. I think this game is going to rival the Fishers Ben Davis game as the best game on Saturday. It's just going to be a really fun game to watch. So we'll see what happens. But so far, B Scott, we are going toe to toe here. We both are going opposites here. So we'll see what happens there. As we move on to 3A, the state final, that is where the night session starts off, 6 p.m. tip. That sees number 4 Scottsburg, the Warriors. They're 24-5 versus number 13 South Bend St. Joseph. They're now the Huskies. I looked this up because when I was on John Harrell, they didn't have a team name, and then I was like, I just searched South Bend St. Joseph team name. And they just voted on it like last month to be known as the Huskies. So I found it on a TV station in South Bend. Is the one that reported it. So if anybody in the comments, is like, no, that's not true. That's where I got it from. So blame Drew Boggs. I know he doesn't work for that station anymore, but blame him anyway. Old college friend. But yeah, the South Bend St. Joseph is the Huskies now, apparently, sources say. So the Warriors rode to Gainbridge. Sectional 30 is where it all kicked off. They won 62-35 over North Harrison in the sectional opener. They defeated Corydon Central 70-40 in the sectional semifinals. They won 65-59 over Silver Creek in the sectional championship game. They defeated Batesville 84-46 in the regionals, and then in semi-state action, they won 58-45 over number 15 Evansville Bossy in game 1, and in their second game, they defeated number 6 Garin Catholic 70-54 to punch their ticket to Indy. The Huskies rode to Gainbridge. It started in sectional 19. They won 65-48 over number 9 Mishawaka Marion. In the sectional semifinals, they defeated South Bend Clay in the sectional finals to advance. Then they won 53-38 over John Glenn in the regionals. And then in the semi-state, they defeated Peru 88-80 in the day session and won 44-41 over number 7 Delta in 3 overtimes to advance to Gainbridge. So when I'm looking for a player to watch, I am going with South Bend St. Joseph guard. He's a junior, Chase Konesny. I'm sorry if I'm butchering that name. I looked it up, and I don't know if I got the right pronunciation, but Konesny. Do you have the pronunciation guide? You usually have the program up, Scott.
Everything is. I mean, let me see if I can find it. All right, hold on. Here we go. South Bend Joseph. It is. Oh Lord, I don't know. Chase Konesny.
Konesny, okay. Konesny. He averages.
I'm probably saying that correctly, but
we'll go with it. Because I don't know particularly one way or the other, but regardless, he averages 20 points per game on the season. He is 49th in the state in scoring. He leads the team in scoring as well. He also leads the team in rebounds per game, 9.1, and assists per game, 2.3. He shoots 39% from beyond the arc. He leads the team in that category as well. This postseason, his stats through the regionals, because that's all that maxpreps had uploaded. He scored 24 points per game. He had 21 points versus Mishawaka Marion in the sectional semifinals. He was 4 of 7 from 3-point range. He had 36 points versus South Bend Clay in the sectional championship. He was 5 for 9 from 3 land, and then had 15 points versus John Glenn in the regionals. I think he was only 2 for 9 from beyond the arc in that one. Scottsburg has the 4th best defense in 3A, allowing 42 points per game. That's 15th in the state. South Bend averages 68 points per game. That's 3rd in 3A, 13th in the state. So Konesny is a big part of that, a big part of the reason South Bend St. Joseph has one of the best offenses in the state, and they'll need him to break through that Scottsburg defense if they're going to have a chance to win on Saturday.
So you took Chase Konesny with Batman. I'm taking his Robin. Give me Jace Lee, the 6'4" senior forward from South Bend St. Joseph. Jace Lee is currently averaging at 15.5 points per game with 5 rebounds. I mean, look, uh, Scottsburg's defense is going to crash down on Chase Konechny. That's definitely going to happen. So, in order for South Bend St. Joseph to win this game, Jace Lee's going to need to step up. And he's done that this year. And I think I'm looking for Jace Lee to have a big game for the Huskies.
Yeah, I mean, I think he definitely can. I mean, this is an offense and a team that can score very well, and I think it's going to be that offense does need to get going if they're going to, have a chance to do well on Saturday. Key to the game for me, second half adjustments for South Bend St. Joseph. I was kind of looking at it, trying to see what I could choose as a key to the game. And I was looking at the scoring averages for these teams by quarter. South Bend St. Joseph outscores Scottsburg 17-15 in both the first and second quarter, and they outscore them 22-18 in the fourth. In the third quarter, Scottsburg has the 19-12 advantage. That 12-point third quarter average for South Bend is their lowest of any quarter. That's followed up by their fourth quarter average of 22 points, which is their highest of any quarter. And what that tells me is that they struggle coming out of halftime. And whether that's struggling to adapt to what the defense is throwing to them or throwing at them, or if that's stopping what the opposing offense has done to break through, it's something that they can't fall victim to versus Scottsburg. They can't fail to make those adjustments. They can't struggle and come out slowly in the second half. Because if they can stay in the first half, they're going to have to stay, toe-to-toe with the Scottsburg team, especially, I mean, I know they have, a great offense, but that defense is going to undoubtedly, slow them down a bit. So they can't afford to have a big lull because it's going to be that much harder to get that offense back going. But when I look at who I think is going to win the game overall, I am going to go with Scottsburg. If you've seen these finals previews before, you know where I like going first. South Bend St. Joseph is 13th in the state offensively. They're third in 3A, averaging 68 points per game. Scottsburg is fourth defensively in 3A, 15th in the state. So, you've got a really great offense versus a really great defense. So what I like to do in those instances is I like to look at, well, what about their counterparts? South Bend St. Joseph is unranked defensively, allowing 55 points per game. Scottsburg has the 7th ranked offense in 3A, 35th in the state, averaging 64 points per game. So for Scottsburg, they have the offense to match South Bend St. Joseph, and they can shut you down with one of the best defenses in the state. That's a recipe for a state championship. So as much as I wanted to go with South Bend St. Joseph because of that offense, because of the scores they have, whenever you have an offense that's just as good as the offense you're playing, and you've got a much better defense, it's really hard to ignore that. So I'm going Scottsburg to win the 3A state championship.
When I'm looking at this game, what's really going to stand out to me, or what I'm interested in seeing, is how both of these teams potentially respond to being in a close game. Right now, both of these teams, their point differential, you got Scottsburg at over 21 points differential, and you got South Bend St. Joseph at over 13 points. So on average, they're not playing in super close games. This one has the makings of being a close game. So who can respond the best in those tight situations? Who's going to have that secondary player step up? Who's going to have that shining moment for their team that's going to help them rally from a 3-point, 4-point deficit? I mean, these types of games get grueling. Now, luckily, with some of the smaller class schools, your depth is not as big, so you are playing you're playing more minutes, even regardless of if it's a blowout or not. But I am curious to see which one of these teams can respond the best under the pressure of playing in a closer game. But for me, I'm taking South Bend St. Joseph in this game. I just feel like when you look at their top two players, their Batman and Robin kind of shine out to you a little bit more than Scottsburg's Batman and Robin. So I'm going the South Bend St. Joseph Huskies to bring home the 3A state title.
So we've been different on all these so far.
Probably up until this next one.
I was gonna say because that's definitely not gonna be true with this next one, only because we both picked the team that has one of the teams that's currently in there. So we both want to obviously be right. So I think this is where the differences will end. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what South Bend St. Joseph can do. But that Scottsburg defense is really strong. But the final game of the IHSAA basketball season will take place at approximately 8:15 p.m. And that will feature the number one. It's the 4A state final that'll feature number one, the Fishers Tigers. They're 28-1 versus number 8, Ben Davis, the Giants. They are 23-5. The Tigers rode to Gainbridge. It started in sectional 8. They defeated number 12 Carmel 54-41 to open sectional play. They won 54 to 44 over Hamilton Southeastern in the sectional semis. They won 49-7 over number 2 Noblesville in the sectional championship. I mean, that was the daunting sectional that was sectional 8. They were able to get out of there. They won 66-52 over number 4 Kokomo in the regionals. And then in the semi-state, they defeated Crown Point 48-37 to advance to the evening session, and then won 69-61 over Fort Wayne to advance to the 4A final. The Giants rode to Gainbridge. They defeated Pike 64-45 in the sectional opener. They won 74-53 over Southport in the sectional semifinals. They beat Roncalli 50-32 to win sectional 11. Then they defeated New Palestine 70-59 in regional action, and then in the semi-state they defeated number 9 Center Grove 75-49 in the first game, and then won 52-51 over Jeffersonville to keep their journey to repeat alive and advance to the 4A state final. Player to watch. I am going to go with Fishers forward Keenan Garner. He's a senior. He averages 16 points per game. That leads the team. He also leads the team in rebounds per game with 8.3. This Fishers team did beat Ben Davis to start the season back in November. In that game, Garner had 21 points and 11 rebounds. But he actually struggled to start the tournament. He was averaging 10 points per game through regionals. Again, that's where the stats cut off the last time I checked for Fishers. He kicked off sectional play with a 4-point performance, followed by an 8-point performance. He had 15 and 13 points after that. He did work through a foot injury in the semi-state championship win over Fort Wayne. He had 16.7 rebounds in that game. He had previously torn some ligaments in his foot, and he rallied through that to put together a strong performance in semi-state action. The guy's a menace. He's a senior leader on that team. Maybe his best performance of the postseason so far came with an injury, and I think he can have another strong performance on Saturday. So Keenan Garner is my player to watch for Fishers.
So I'm actually looking at some of these players for Ben Davis. The one that stands out to me the most is Northwestern commit, and he signed with Northwestern, but KJ Wyndham. Look, Ben Davis, they're your defending state champs. They have some athletes on this team, but KJ Wyndham, he's headed to the Big Ten. This is his moment to go out as a 2-time state champion. The leadership abilities, it's time for him to step into, he's had that. He's done it all year. But he's just my player to watch just because, Division I, Big Ten basketball recruit, that says a lot. And then, even you look further, I'll get more into the rest of that later. But yeah, my player to watch is KJ Wyndham.
Yeah, that's a good player to watch too, because like you said, he's a great player going in the Big Ten. You might see Northwestern and think they're not really a huge, basketball school, but they were just in the tournament. They were in the round of 32.
FAU.
Yeah, they were in the round of 32. They are a sneaky good team. Every now and again, I think KJ Wyndham will have a strong. Will just make that team even better next year.
Northwestern, for some reason, knows how to get a player or two out of the state of Indiana that may have been potentially overlooked, and turn them into something. Look at Brooks Barnheiser right now. That's
Yeah.
another good example. So yeah, KJ Wyndham's my player to watch here.
Yeah, he's a great player, and it's going to be fun to watch and see what he's able to do during the game on Saturday. Looking at the key to the game, Ben Davis needs to start strong and match what Fishers does in the first quarter. In the meeting back in November between these two teams, Fishers led Ben Davis 17-8 after the first quarter, and they trailed by as many as 18 in the second quarter. And we're behind by 14 at halftime. I get that it was in November. Literally an entire season has taken place between then and now, but it's significant. Fishers has the 10th best offense in Class 4A, 19th in Indiana, averaging 67 points per game. Ben Davis is 21st in 4A offensively, 43rd in the state, averaging 63 points per game. As you said, they've got Northwestern commit KJ Wyndham, who averages 15 points per game. They now actually outscore Fishers in the first quarter. When you look at scoring averages, Ben Davis scores 16, Ben Davis scores 16, Fisher scores 15 in the opening quarter. So the point is, Ben Davis has the scoring ability to keep up with Fishers. They just can't afford to have a lull to start the game. They can't afford to let Fishers get off to a hot start while they kind of sputter and figure out what they want to do offensively. They got to match Fishers toe-to-toe, tit for tat, if they want to stay in this game and avoid things kind of getting out of hand. I mean, we've seen that happen the last few 4A state finals, where one team kind of got off to a hot start, and then the team that they were facing had a tough time recovering from that. So Ben Davis needs to make sure that they can stay on the heels of Fishers, and keep it a close game and not let themselves get into a lull. But my prediction shouldn't shock anyone. As we said, we both picked Fishers at the beginning of the tournament. So I'm going to go with Fishers here again. They were my pre-tournament pick. I'm not going to waver. They came out of the gauntlet that was Sectional 8. They knocked off number 12 Carmel and number 2 Noblesville. Who was waiting for them in regionals? Number 4 Kokomo. So they've just been battle-tested all tournament long. Speaking of Kokomo, Fishers beat the Wildcats by 22 on a neutral floor in December, and then beat them by 13 in this postseason. Why does that matter? Well, you guys might be, I've talked a few times about Ben Davis and Fishers having already played this season. You might think, well, hey, Craig, I mean, that was literally the first start of the year. Why does all that matter now? Well, look at what Fishers just did to a team that they had played earlier in the season and then had a rematch against them in the postseason. They took care of business again. So they kind of have that track record of they showed they didn't come out, they still beat Kokomo by 13 points. They had beaten them by 25 in the regular season, or 22 on a neutral floor in December, and then beat them by 13 in the postseason. So it's not like they barely scraped by or struggled with them the second time around. They still took care of business. So that kind of you might say Ben Davis is a different team, but yet, I mean, look at what Fishers was able to do to a team that they've already played. And plus, we haven't had a repeat 4A champion in back-to-back seasons since Carmel in 2012 and 2013. I know there's an asterisk next to that because Carmel also were the 4A defending champions in 2019 and 2021. But with no state finals in 2020, that's technically a repeat. But as far as like back-to-back seasons, we haven't seen it in about 10 years or so. So it's the Tigers' year. I think they bring it home. I think Fishers is going to be your 4A state champion.
Yeah. Again, it's not really a key, but it's just something I'm interested in seeing and how it unfolds. Yes, Fishers has beaten Ben Davis to kick off the season. It was a 13-point victory. But as this season has gone on, I'm interested now in seeing how Fishers can handle the athleticism of Ben Davis. Look, we've already talked about KJ Wyndham, but then you add now to this team high-end Division I football recruit in Mark Zachary, who's one of the top secondary players in the country. That the athleticism will be very interesting to see how Fishers can handle it, especially considering the variance in height from Ben Davis. And you look at Fishers, everybody's kind of about the same height. And how does that come into play? Obviously, it's not as huge of a factor. We know Fishers can overcome that because, look, they beat Flory Badunga and Kokomo, which, there's probably your your Indiana Mr. Basketball in Flory Badunga, but I think it'll be interesting. It's going to be a good battle. Ben Davis, this is their title still. They don't want to give it up. So I'm really excited to see this matchup, but Fishers is just on a freaking tear this year. I don't think it's good. It's going to be very tough for somebody to beat them. So give me the Fishers Tigers to win the 4A state championship.
So there you go. I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's going to be a really fun game. Like I said, the 2A state final and the 4A state final are the games that I think I'm looking forward to the most. I think that both of those games are going to be really fun. You've got the Jack Bender and Isaac Andrews showdown between Wapahani and Brownstown, and then you've got Fishers and Ben Davis. Fishers, a team that's literally never won a state championship. In boys basketball, and then you've got Ben Davis, who's the repeat champion. And you're absolutely right. I mean, we talked about, again, real quick, want to reiterate the fact that these teams have had a 2-week hiatus. I mean, Fishers has had 2 weeks to think about, like, oh man, we're 1 game away. We've got 1 game away. You think on the one hand, you're thinking, okay, finish. They're not going to be phased. All they got to do is think like 1 game away from winning a state championship. But they've never been there before. Whereas Ben Davis has been like, hey, you know what? We've got 2 weeks. Business as usual. We've done this before. So you wonder, what kind of effect that'll play on these teams. So it's going to be a lot of fun to watch on state finals Saturday. Very excited to see how that plays out. Again, B. Scott, you've got Fort Wayne Canterbury, you've got Brownstown Central, you've got South Bend St. Joseph. I've got Wapahani, I've got Bethesda Christian and Scottsburg. For the 1 through 3A, and then we both have Fishers in the 4A state championship. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Really excited. But that will do it for this week's edition of the Crash Course Podcast. Thank you guys all for hanging out. Remember, you can follow us on Facebook, 3C Media. Go over to the Twitter channel at 3C Media Sports, which I just realized the logo's not there. That's interesting. On the graphic at the top of the screen, you can follow us. Go over to the YouTube channel, subscribe right over there, 3C Media there. You guys have been showing a lot of love to the IndyCar tier list. Hope you guys enjoyed that one. We've got a lot of good content coming out for you guys as well. Then go over to the TikTok as well, 3C Media. If you're on the YouTube channel, go over to the podcast app. You can listen to us every week on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever podcasts can be heard. You can hear the Crash Course Podcast. You can find me at I can't talk. You can find me at Crash Course FM on Twitter. B. Scott, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Brandon_Scott87.
Next week, we will be talking more basketball, more of the college varieties. We will be talking about the Final Four. We didn't give you a tournament preview show, so we're going to preview the Final Four. We're going to get into the weeds for some college basketball. It's going to be a lot of fun. But until then, have a good week, everybody.